Thank you very much for joining us here today. Hopefully we'll have an engaging session. Hopefully you've had a great conference so far. Third morning of the conference. I know everyone's usually a little bleary-eyed, so hopefully we'll wake you up a little bit with our presentation. My name is Justin Vogt. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Connelly Partners. We're a fully integrated marketing solutions agency located right here in Boston. Our sole focus is creating engaging connections between customers and brands solely around the use and power of empathy. Enough for the selfish plug. That's all I'm going to say about us. If you want to learn more about Connelly Partners, please feel free to visit our website or follow us at Connelly Agency. I'm going to just introduce our panel here today. I'll start with Scott Madden. Scott's a friend and colleague at Connelly Partners. He's a senior partner and director of strategy and integrated services. Scott spent much of his career gathering and leveraging audience intelligence to craft brand platforms and content strategies for clients, such as Samsonite, Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, EpiPen, and Tufts Health Plan, just to name a few. He's taught account planning courses at Boston College and is a regular speaker on the subject of audience empathy. Next, we have Brian Kastelein, who's the founder and principal of Cogency Marketing, a marketing analytics services and consulting firm based in Richmond, Virginia. Brian started Cogency Marketing 6 years ago with a vision for a company that specifically focuses on helping its clients leverage their data to make smarter decisions that drive better results. While an ability to organize and analyze data is central to everything he does at Cogency, his focus is always in connecting data to decisions in a way that is actionable and measurable. Some of his current clients include AMF Bowling, FootJoy, Kaspersky Lab, Pods, and Ralph Lauren. Next, we have Dr. Felix Lutz. He's the founder and CEO of Sophisticated Knowledge, a think tank located in Cambridge here, which provides state-of-the-art knowledge and cross-disciplinary applications in the neurosciences, anthropology, and marketing. Dr. Lutz has been studying the neurosciences since the late 1980s and has been working in neuromarketing for the past 6 years. Previously, he was a professor of international relations at Schiller International University, as well as an associate professor of international relations at Mainz and Munich University, in addition to teaching IR at Heidelberg University and also the former CEO of the International Business School, a private university in Berlin, where he introduced neuromarketing into the curriculum. And finally, very pleased to have joining us today Jen Reddy, who is Senior Vice President of Global Marketing at Communispace, which is a consumer collaboration agency that has redefined customer engagement and insight by partnering with 100 of the world's most admired brands to create over 500 online communities with members in more than 96 countries focused on building customer relationships that deliver powerful business insights, ideas, and intelligence. Since 2006, Jen's primary role has been to expand the company's global reach while continuing to build upon its existing U.S. presence. Prior to joining Communispace, Jen worked as brand planning director for over 12 years, helping to guide some of the world's largest brands at agencies such as Mullen, the Martin Agency, and Arnold Worldwide. Jen has so graciously agreed to be our moderator today for the panel, and I'll hand it over to her.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. I actually just came back from an offsite with my own company from the last 2 days, and there was probably 30 of us in a group, officers, and the biggest topic we had was that our clients are mostly CMOs, and they are very challenged with how they're going to come up with the next big innovation, or how they're going to get to breakthroughs, or how are they going to connect with their consumer on a deeper level. And it's something that we, as Communispace, work to help them with, but it's just fitting that that's what I'm talking to these guys about today, because two of the hottest topics that these CMOs and brand managers face today are the notion of big data and also neuroscience. So, you know, before I kick it off, I have you all think about how you all process information differently than maybe your child or a teenager today, or even some of the companies that you work with. So, that being said, I'm going to kick it off with Scott and say, you know, the way that we process information and how we look at ads or how we interact with messages, has the brain really changed?
It's a good question.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. The brain does change. It changes throughout our lives. It changes for at least the sake of today's topic and discussion in a couple ways that I think matter to what we're talking about today. The first of which is our life experiences, our day-to-day experiences, societally, culturally, the relationships we have, the new relationships we form on an ongoing basis, all of those change the way we think about things, our attitudes, our feelings, our preferences, and how we behave are all continually evolving and changing as we are exposed to different experiences and different things that happen to us in our lives. So that certainly means, you know, that we as marketers have to account for the evolution, I guess, for lack of a better term, of the audience, not just from an age and maturation standpoint, but from how those influences in life change the way we look at a product or a brand or feel about something. The other aspect that changes, and Jen, you just sort of alluded to it a moment ago, is how we process information and data. And so if you think just about your own life and think about how you live life today and the technology that you have at your disposal today and the workload you have and manage yourself in your career and how that's different than 3 or 4 years ago, I would suspect everyone in this room would say, I am more productive today than I was 3 or 4 years ago. I am more frenetic maybe in my life than I was 3 or 4 years ago. And all of that is driven by the amount of information that we take in, that we process, that we filter through the brain, and we take action against, and how we manage our lives. And the brain continues to get better and smarter at handling that increasing load of data. So if you think about when iPhone 5 comes out and it's got an A5 chip, and then iPhone 5S comes out and it's got an A7 or whatever it is, and it processes twice as fast. Well, the brain's works the same way, and over time we get smarter and we get more efficient, and we find techniques and mechanisms in how we look visually at data, process it, filter it, and consume it or comprehend it. So we get better and better at bucketing things out that we know right away are not important or not relevant, and we get better and better at finding the things through that colander, if you will, that's important to us, that we need to either do our jobs or live our lives or stimulate ourselves emotionally or what have you. So, a bit of a long-winded answer, but yes, the brain keeps changing.
Can I just jump in on that? Part of what I really like about these 3 disciplines sitting up here today is sort of how we work together. So I spend a lot of my time being a marketing analytics guy, understanding and measuring behavior. So I'm not really qualified physiologically or like you guys to answer the question, does the brain change? I measure behavior, response behavior, conversion behavior, things like that. But I think part of what hopefully comes to life today in the conversation we're going to have is how these 3 disciplines work together, and how while we look at the marketing questions through a different lens, there's a common goal and there's texture to the answers that we come up with. Again, mine is a sort of not single-threaded, but mine's one way of looking at the world. I can understand what the marketing stimulus is, and I can measure the response to that stimulus. That's one view of it. When we talk about the neuromarketing or the brand planning and some of the work that you do in research, that's all texture and layer upon layer of insight about what's driving the customer, at its core. So again, it's really interesting to me. I thought it was a setup question originally because my wife would answer that question. Yes, my brain is changing. I'm more forgetful. But as we think about the consumer, sort of the combination of these 3 disciplines, I think, is really interesting.
Does the brain change? Well, neuroanatomically, it doesn't change, of course. Evolution is takes much more time, but you're right. We change, the brain changes in its reactions to what we do. Culture forms our brains, and information processing changes. For example, we did hundreds of studies measuring how people, men and women, for example, look at shelves in stores. And the viewing patterns of men and women are totally different. Men spend much less time in stores looking for something they want than women. Women get an overview of what they are looking at, while as men just figure out where is it and leave. And that's, you can read about that. Brains are different, our brains are changing, the information processing is changing, and we are changing our brains by medical brain enhancement medicines, brain enhancers, And all that is based on neurotransmitters and new knowledge of how our brains work.
Great. It's good context for us getting into one of the big topics we're going to discuss today. I was looking at my Twitter feed this morning, and serendipitously, Fast Company had something about neuroscience, and there's a company called iQuant that believes that there is a science to how you view the web, and the article was about, can neuroscience and eye training help you design a website that attracts more customers? And companies like Google and eBay and Barnes & Noble are all doing this, and I started to read it, and it showed how some of their people who they've researched were looking at websites and where the heat was and what they were doing, and it blew my mind. But before we even go there, I mean, I think we need to know what exactly is neuroscience, what is neuromarketing, and what's its functional role today? I'm going to start with you, Felix.
Well, neuromarketing is a wide field, and it's mostly carried out by a lot of companies now to put people do brain scans with people, and then tell a client like Coca-Cola, there's this famous experiment, whether the amygdala or any other part of the brain likes Coke or prefers Pepsi or so. However, all these experiments, all this testing is done with very low sample sizes. Plus, the picture is still blurred when we look at brain scans. It's not that precise yet, and the amygdala gets activated whether you, some people, you whip them and the amygdala says, great, give me more, and other people the amygdala gets activated when you eat an apple cake. So it's very hard. There's a lot of interpretation when you do that kind of technology. What we do, when we started with research that was carried out at the Max Planck Institute for Psychiatry in Munich. And what they did was they interviewed hundreds of people where they knew about the people, about their level of neurotransmitters, basically. Some of these people were ill, they had genetic defects and were very high on testosterone or very low on dopamine. And all these things, all these neurotransmitters have direct effects on our behavior. If you take out dopamine, I would never have traveled here. I would never have left my little South German village and would still buy at the same bakery and had never studied neuroscience or sociology, whatever. And that is true to any other people. Dopamine keeps us, it belongs to the search complex. Psychologists know more about that. And Christopher Columbus would never have entered his little boat to search for India and still being afraid to fall off the rim at the time. So neurotransmitters cause behavior, and that's what where we build on. And this behavior, do we have a chart there? Oh yeah. What we call values, and these are the concepts we are operating with, or we have been operating with, in target group modeling, in market research, in many economic models. We assume there's rational behavior, and then we have values. Values are concepts of what we wish each other, what we want each other to do. Otherwise, we would constantly be in danger or get killed at a red light if you don't stop. You don't stop because you want to be stopped by the red light. You stop because you're afraid to getting killed by a car who has a green light. That's the only reason why we stop. So there are values. Neurotransmitters cause behavior. Language is behavior. Language is the strongest form of behavior we have. And in the end, can you go back to that slide? You will find big books now about one neurotransmitter, for example, oxytocin, and how oxytocin theoretically in the development of this idea leads in the end to social institutions, because oxytocin is responsible for bonding, for caring, for cooperation. And there's this theory that mankind only survived during evolution because we cooperated. And oxytocin is one of the many neurotransmitters. There are roughly 200 in our bodies that are responsible for cooperation. So we have institutions, and now can you go on? And so based on this knowledge, on all these interviews, they interviewed these people, they looked at their language, they looked at the levels of neurotransmitters, and and put together this neurotypology of people. So what we do is, at Sophisticated Knowledge, and together with Connelly Partners now, is we read out the language of the internet. We can also put into the system qualitative interviews if we have Word documents. But we read out the internet, we read out all of the US web, the whole web, based on emotional language. Of course, not everything. We don't do tech language. We're not interested in the word door. We're not interested in the word water or table or car. We're interested in emotional language that we process, and based on all the research done by other people and by us, we know which of these words tackle, address, or activate any neurotransmitter, any given neurotransmitter. And then we put it into a map. It's a very complicated data processing thing, and if you can go on. Then we have the language, and it's about 1,500 words that we evaluated, and those words we processed in different kinds of analysis, and that came up with 11 factors. Now, if you look at psychology, you start with the Neo-5, the big 5. You have 5 characters, or if you go to, I don't know, target group models of McKinsey or Roland Berger or others, you come up with 18 or 19 or 25 or even more. So we have 11 emotional factors, and when we analyze speech, when we analyze language, either in the web or someplace else, we come up with these 11 effective emotional cores of a given sample or of a given person. Next one. That's roughly average. Over the lifespan of a person, the level of neurotransmitters in the body. Only 3 here. Cannot put in 200, would not be readable. Am I good on time? And you see that at our early 20s, we're very high on dopamine and testosterone, which makes us drive 300 kilometers on a German Autobahn or go on a little boat and search for India. And once we're past 50, the cortisol level, it's a stress hormone, makes us slow down on the Autobahn. That's why we don't find many dead Porsche drivers on German Autobahns. The Porsche drivers are young who cause the accidents, not older. And so language and age and neurotransmitters are directly correlated. It's very important. Go to the next one. So we have our map with language and the 11 factors. And I just put to make this more understandable, I put the color code of the language on this slide. And you see that language and age is a very important thing. We know that young people speak a totally different language than older people. Now, you knew that before. Even my grandma knew that. That's nothing new. But we can tell you why now. And we can give you the language for marketing. It's not enough to know that things happen. If you're a farmer 200 years ago, you stand in front of a tree, the leaves are getting brown, and you say, oh, it's because it's getting colder and winter is coming. Well, that's one reason. That's looking at the symptoms. The reason is because Earth is moving away from sun, because there's a very complex ecological system in the root system of the tree, which belongs to the Earth and to the climate thing and climate change. There are many, many more reasons why the leaves turn brown. Even the tree could be sick. So just standing there, looking at it, oh, winter is coming, fall is coming, is like working with one of the outdated models out there that just tell you about values or the economic rationality of the consumer. It's kind of 19th century stuff. But, is there another one? I don't remember. That's it? Okay, fine. Then I finish here. They gave me a limited time only. And so much about the US semantics. We call this US semantics. I've been working with a model similar to that in Germany. We're now establishing it in the US, working here since a few months. And that's how we use it and apply it in marketing. Language that we know is out there that addresses neurotransmitters, which is able to influence behavior.
Great. So listening to you, I think about 5 years ago when I took on a marketing role and the tools that were available to me and what I was going to do to find out about consumer behavior, what people wanted. I think we can all agree this is a much more intense, sophisticated, highly evolved way to understand why people do what they do. And the three of you play different roles, analytics, neuroscience, you are traditional research. I would love to know from the three of you, how do you help your clients understand the roles of each one? And is one more important than the other, or is it some combination? And then the second part to this is, how do you help a client understand that this is needed? Because I think a lot of clients are still trying to catch up or understand why it's going to make a difference for them and their brand. Brian.
Yeah, I'll jump in. And I'll start with the last question first. Helping clients understand that it's needed is usually the easiest part of my job, because usually I walk into a client situation and they're saying, oh my gosh, I have all this data. I get all these reports, but here are the decisions I'm trying to make. Here are the objectives I'm trying to reach with my business. I can't connect the reports or the data I have to those decisions I'm trying to make. So, the need part of it is usually pretty easy for me. Sort of the role I see for marketing analytics in today's environment is obviously to address those data questions. So we've heard at this conference even, and it's a big buzzword right now. We're going to talk about it a little bit later in the discussion this morning. But I've noted for years, as organizations, our ability to capture data has far outpaced our ability to do something useful or actionable with that data. So to me, the role of analytics